My name is Mariano. I'm from La Crypta. And we're going to be talking today about, well, let's do it a different way. We're going to be talking about LaWallet, which is a NOSTR-Backed Lightning Wallet. So, there we go. Okay, cool. So, have you guys all got one of these things in your bag? Yes? Did you? Cool. Did you actually open it? Tougher question. Did you actually scan the QR code? Okay, so someone who's not from La Crypta, have you actually scanned the QR code? Cool. All right, so you got a QR code, you got an NFC card with it, okay? Keep those. More on that later. Okay, so who are we? We are La Crypta. We are one of the biggest Bitcoin communities here in Argentina. We live mostly on Discord. We have 1,700 members, 1,700 members on Discord, and we also have a Telegram channel, and we have 500 members there. We are hardcore Bitcoiners. It's been 11-ish years on Bitcoin. We come from a mostly developer-centric trajectory. We are very passionate about open source and free and open source software. We have more than 50 repositories, both in the La Crypta, what is it, like the corporate, no, it's not corporation, the organization, thank you. We have 50 plus GitHub repositories in the La Crypta organization and on the LaWallet.io organization as well. And we come from very varied backgrounds. There's a lot of people from La Crypta here today, and you can see there's some expats, there's teachers, there's developers, there's people from all walks of life that come here. A lot of Venezuelan guys, actually. All right, so what's our mission and what's our vision in all of this? Well, our primary mission is planetary scale hyper-Bitcoinization. We want Bitcoin to reach the world, okay? We also believe that there's a huge need for technological and economical mentoring in general. People are very economically literate and technologically literate. It's very hard to insert them into the Bitcoin community as a whole. And we also believe in building communities through shared core values. There are a certain set of values that we need to agree on and move on from that. And our vision is that Bitcoin is not a revolution. Bitcoin is a revolution. It's not a technology. It's not an investment. It's not just technology. It's a whole revolution. It's another way of looking at things. Bitcoin has an ideological component to it. It has a political component to it. It's so much more than just a token. It's just an asset. We do believe that crypto is not the same as Bitcoin. Now, we are unashamedly Bitcoin maxis. We are not Bitcoin Nazis. We are Bitcoin maxis. Okay? We believe that these are two different tools for two different jobs. We do not disdain crypto in general, Web3, you know. There is a place for each of them. We all use it all the time. But it's not the same. And conflating those two, it's dumb. We also believe that foundationals are much, much more important than technologies themselves. Foundationals are the reason why technologies exist. Technologies enable us to realize our foundational core values. All right. Feel free to stop me at any time, ask me any amount of questions, it's fine. So, how can we make Lightning as a vehicle for Bitcoin reach the world? Well, I'm not truly sure, but I know what does not work and what's a really dumb approach. And that's a one channel per person. This is a very, very dumb approach, okay? Per year, you get something around 160 million Bitcoin transactions. If every person in the world would be to open a single channel, single Lightning channel, we would take 44 years for that to happen. We are 7 billion people in the world, going 10. And by a cruel twist of destiny, this is pretty much the number of births that we have every year. So if we start right now, we will definitely never end. So just opening a single channel per person is not feasible, okay? And this is in a very generous scenario. We are not accounting for any channel management. Channels need to be closed eventually. And this is assuming that the Bitcoin network is entirely dedicated to opening Bitcoin channels. This is not going to happen. All right, so what we can conclude from this is that channels will be shared. There are going to be certain channels established between hubs, and people are going to share their funds on those channels. Now, sharing is unavoidable in the Lightning setup as it is today. So there are some very basic do's and don'ts, your basic, sanitary do's and don'ts. You should share with people you trust. You shouldn't share with complete strangers. You should share with transparent agents, people that are completely above board, completely above table, telling you what they're doing every step of the way. You shouldn't share with closed source systems or, shady guys. It's some guy approaches you and, hey, do you want to buy some Bitcoin? You wouldn't, right? Well, even more so here. And, well, there's wisdom in not committing sizable capital on a shared channel, okay? And while we're at it, if you're sharing channels, there's some feeless transactions that can happen. So, yeah, sharing channels. What do you mean sharing channels? Like people just pulling all of their Bitcoins on the same place and maxis will just clutch their pearls and go like, what are you talking about? Well, there's this sort of, false dichotomy between self-custodial and third-party custodial. And for the longest time, this has been, framed in a very confrontational manner, in a very us versus them. You're either self-custodial or you are, a central bank. And that's really dumb and simplistic. People don't think in those terms. People don't think of trust in a binary manner. There's a whole gray area in the middle. People trust other people at varying degrees. There are communities, there are workspaces, societies as a whole expose this, melting pot of different trust levels. What we do need to do is provide technologies and channels for that, gray areas of trust to actually realize themselves in a productive manner. Now, there are some examples of non-binary trust relationships. So for instance, my family, maybe this is a Latin America thing, but family is like the de facto standard for trust. I trust my family implicitly. My friends, the family that I choose, in a way, well, I trust them quite a lot. I trust my personal friend, Agustin. I can just leave a whole bunch of money right beside Agustin, and he will not even lay an eye on it. And I know that. I know that for a fact. Communities, for instance. Like, when you guys bought the entrance, who bought the ticket to the bitcoin++? Like, show hands. All right. So you gave Nifty some money. And she could have run away with that money. But she made this happen. You trusted her to make this happen. And that's fine. There you go. Nifty, everyone. All right? And this is perhaps the most, pedestrian example. But you trust your employer with your money for a whole month or a week or whatever. You trust him to pay you when the day comes, when payday comes, okay? So we already do this, and we're fine with this. We don't have a problem trusting friends, family, communities, or our employer. We just do it. But if we frame this in the dichotomy of either trustless or central banks or fiat, we're never going to take advantage of these trust relationships that people, normal people, actually establish all the time. And to wrap the whole trustless versus non-trustless environment, trustless is not trustless. Now, one of the most popular wallets is Wallet of Satoshi. Who's rocking Wallet of Satoshi here? There you go. There you go. It's okay. No judgment here. It's fine. Okay, so Wallet of Satoshi, closed source wallet. Okay? Have you seen the source code for Wallet of Satoshi? No. Well, let's take an open source wallet then. Who has an open source wallet installed? Show hands. There you go. Have you read the code? You did. You look like the guy who would read the code, actually. Have you read the code? Just one guy. Two guys. Three guys. There we go. 3 out of, I don't know, 40? That's not even 10%. Okay? Have you compiled it? Or do you trust the marketplace? And most importantly, do you do that every time your wallet gets updated? Every single time? Well, you do. So you're implicitly trusting a whole bunch of people. And you don't even know it, and you're fine with it. So trustless is, you should take that with a grain of salt. Now, we based our LaWallet product on Nostr. Now, who knows what Nostr is? Great. I so did not want to explain Nostr. So we see Nostr as sort of Bitcoin's little brother. Okay? It's weird to think about it because it's a bit like Bitcoin without the time chain component to it. Okay? It's weird. But it's actually transparent, and it's an open source standard in a way, getting there. And it has a lot of the same features that Bitcoin has. Okay? It's completely transparent. Once you publish an Nostr message, you publish that on a relay. Anyone can just read from the relay. Everything is public. You have your own private key, so no one can impersonate you, and you cannot then deny that you did not send this message. This is signed with your private key. This is yours. And there is absolutely no KYC or nothing. You are just a private key somewhere. Nobody gives nothing about who you are. So the need for Nostr in a non-self-custodial wallet is precisely the fact that we cannot screw you over. If we back all of our wallet on Nostr, every movement we make, everything that we do with your funds, whatever that is going to be backed up in a publicly verifiable and publicly auditable relay. So we're being openly transparent we're being proactively transparent about what we do with your funds. So let's talk a bit about LaWallet architecture. This is not going to be a dev talk. This is not like a workshop or anything like that. This is going to be just a bird's eye view of how it works. Okay? So here on the left, you can see a typical microservice architecture. Okay? Super textbook microservice architecture. You have a message queue. This is normally Kafka or SQS or whatever. You have some API gateway that will feed stuff to this message queue, and you have then a number of microservices that read and write to that message queue. Totally standard, totally classic. Well, LaWallet does things a bit different. We use Nostr as our message queue, but also as our main read repository in a way. So when you have clients being, like the web app itself, they can directly connect to Nostr. And they don't need to wait for a response or anything. They are fed the actual state. The whole application state lives in Nostr, so we cannot lie to you. What's in Nostr is what is. And every other module just reads and writes through Nostr, communicates through Nostr. Each module will have its own private key. Each module will sign their own messages, and they just communicate through there. So all the internal communication as well is completely transparent. You can see what we're doing all the time. There is no underhandedness in this. But in general, this is just exactly the same architecture with a transparency layer sort of on it. We still do keep an API gateway. We don't want the relay to be like publicly accessible. We don't want just anyone to just write on the Nostr relay. And there are a couple of flows that still require HTTP requests. So we need to route them somehow. That's why that API gateway exists. So we have a very user-centric design, okay? So first of all, we never handle private keys. We don't handle private keys at all. Private keys are handled on your PW and the PWA, no, on the Parallel app, and you generate those when you first boot the application, and we don't know them. So there's no way for us to recover your account. We can transfer your funds from one account to the other, and there's certain flows for that, but we don't know your account. We cannot impersonate you. Secondly, everything is, as I was saying, everything is stored in Nostr. And we'll leverage NIP04, which is encrypted messages, in order to do that. So if you change your configuration, you will basically be sending a message to yourself encrypted with, I don't know, your private key. In certain instances, more than one agent requires reading that configuration. So in that case, we extend NIP04. You know, it's a bit technical, but we extend it so that more than one public key, private key actually, can decrypt the messages. And we are considering using NIP44 or extensions of it in the near future. Everything that the wallet can do is user configurable in the sense that you can choose not to send funds to Rapex, for instance. You identify Rapex's public key and say, just don't send funds to this guy. Okay? And you can change how much funds you can move from one account to the other. It's completely configurable. And it's extremely flexible, actually. Everything is identity-based. Okay? You don't need to remember any public keys. You don't need to remember to generate an invoice and pay an invoice. You can just send money to some whatever wallet. Okay? We do provide automatic LUD 06 and 16 support. Once you boot up the wallet for the first time, you're going to get all these entries created for you, along with an NIP 05 entry. So your private key gets a name, and that name gets LN, URL, P, and W endpoints created for it. And finally, remember that NFC thingy that you got in the care package? Well, this is completely compatible with BoltCard. And not only the card is compatible, but the actual POS, point of sale, is also compatible. We are mutually, we understand each other perfectly. Like, this will generate, every time you scan it, it will generate a URL. That URL is an LN URL W URL. That was a word solid. So you hit this and say, okay, just generate, pay me this invoice. And if the system knows your public key, we'll say, yeah, sure, I will pay that. I will pay within certain margins. Completely interoperable with BoltCard. And the reason for that is that we don't want to keep inventing standards. We don't need more standards. We need to use the ones we have in a, intelligent manner. We do extend the BoltCard protocol, but we're perfectly compatible with it. All right, so, ouch. Let's see two very dumb, very easy LaWallet flows. Okay, first one is initialization. Initialization is super easy. Once you scan the QR code, you will generate your own private key. You will choose a alias, a wallet alias, okay, whatever you want. And you will ask the Lightning domain to register this handle and public key pair. We'll talk about this in a second. Now this guy says, okay, cool. So this alias is not used. It's completely new. I will set up a NIP 05, a LUD 06, a LUD 16 for you. I will set everything up for you and say, okay, sure. You can now start using the wallet. And now, from this point on, people can just send you monies to this alias, and it will just reach you. The second flow is what happens when you transfer internally, okay? So a bit of prep work before this. The only way you can fund your wallet nowadays is through Lightning, okay? So you will just ask, okay, I want to enter some monies here, and it will generate a QR, which is a Lightning invoice. You pay that invoice, and voila, you have money on the wallet. But now, internal transfers don't go through the Lightning network. There's no need for that. What you do is you create an event, and you sign that event with your private key, and you publish that to Nostr. stating your intention of, I don't know, I want to send 21 sats to Rapax, okay? So I will say that, everybody will listen to that, everybody will know that I want to send 21 sats to Rapax. The ledger module is one of those modules that are listening to the main the message queue. We'll pick that up and say, okay, so do I have 21 sats to send to Rapax? Am I allowed to do that? Is Rapax a known pub key for me? Okay, sure. If all of these checks pass, monies will be atomically transferred to Rapax's account, okay? And then we'll just say, okay, transfer was successful. And now everyone can read this and are automatically notified that the transfer was successful. No fees whatsoever. This is just changing some values on a database. There's no need to charge you for that, okay? But everything got its quote-unquote paper trail on the Nostr relay. So that is pretty much what LaWallet is. Let's see where we can go from here. Oh, sorry. So the open source is for clone, okay? You're expected to clone this. We are committing all of this to public repositories so that everyone can build their own stack. We don't think of LaWallet as just a wallet, but rather a meta wallet of sorts. The idea is that each organization, each community, each enterprise can just download the whole stack and set up their own NOSTR-Backed Lightning Wallet. We can talk about how we communicate between communities at a later point in time, but the idea is that if you have your own trust nuclei, you can leverage that, and you can set up your whole application in one go. That's what we mean by they're intended for cloning. The idea behind the wallet is not that you use our implementation or our instance of the wallet, but rather that you build your own instance. There's some workshops also as well. And you have a choice in how deep you want to go into this cloning. You can just clone a couple of modules and say, okay, so I want to take care of my own cards, for instance. I want to bring my own cards, I want to set up my own cards, and I want to manage my own cards myself. You can do that if you want. You can just do that. And there's a whole grading of different repositories that you can clone in order to get more or less self-custodial functionality. And do keep in mind that this is, an alpha product in a way. Expect things to be broken. Okay, I can 100% assure you that there are bugs here, but we can get rid of those bugs together. And finally, using Nostr as a message, a glorified message queue is kind of strange. Nostr was born as a sort of decentralized social network, but we believe it can be so much more than just that. So what we're trying to do is make Nostr a decentralized source of truth, a completely decentralized message queue and communication network. And in using Nostr in that manner, we found some nice patterns. Like, for instance, we can mostly get rid of REST APIs and just use Nostr ephemeral messages to communicate. And that's way more convenient. Like, it really unlocks event-driven programming at a system level. There are some issues. There are some issues with replaceable events. The standard is a bit crass in using created at as the main resolution step. So replaceable events that happen at the same second in the same window of seconds need to be reposted regularly until eventually they settle down. Some chain events, for instance, what we were just seeing here, is that when you start chaining these things, you actually get like a sort of per public key mini blockchain. And that's great. But if you don't have a way of pointing to the top of chain events, things get wild to filter out. Nostr's programming language is not particularly powerful. Query language is not particularly powerful. There are some anti-patterns as well that we identified. Like, for instance, you can delete stuff from the relay in Nostr. That's a really, really bad idea. Like, in general. It's a really dumb idea. You can do it, just don't. There are some creation time constraints in relays, like established in one of the NIPs, NIP 09, I believe. And those can cause very subtle and very hard to debug problems. And last but not least, normalization, normalizing data in an SQL-esque way is really not your friend. As I mentioned, Nostr's query language is not particularly powerful, so sometimes you need to do the work yourself beforehand so that Nostr's very weak query language can actually do what you need it to do. So, yes. This part? Okay, cool. So, let's say you have a message. I want to send a message to a relay stating that I want to send you 21 sats, okay? So I may say something like, okay, so here's the body of the message, and it's just the text that says, Mariano sends Lucas 21 sats, okay? And that's perfectly fine. The system can understand that, and it's great. The problem is that the system understands that once it has a hold of that message. In order to find that message, well, we need to help Nostr along. So, for instance, I will start adding tags, single-letter tags, that I can then use in a rec filter so as to identify, for instance, all the events where I am the sender, or all the events where you are the receiver. But I need to do that work for it, because otherwise there's no way for Nostr to get inside the message or to really chain conditionals in a complex manner. You need to think in like, I don't know, like disjuncting normal form and stuff like that. It's very, very weak in a way. Serviceable, but weak. No problem. Any other questions? Cool, sis. All right. So, thank you very much for your time. In here, you can find the LaWallet.io site where you can download all of the different modules, the whole stack, a whole test environment for you to try out. This is La Crypta webpage. You know, it's kind of under construction, but pretty neat. And that is it. Thank you very much for your time.